Look, see, this is green, tan.
Looks green to me.
Oh, Jesus.
Ron, you seem like a good husband, and I'm struggling this holiday season to come up with gifts for my wife that aren't gifts she told me she would. Because she gives me a list, but I don't want to just get her the things that she puts on her list. I want a couple surprises. You seem like a good gift giver. Any advice for the husbands out there trying to surprise their wives?
Really? You think that Ron it seems like a good gift giver?
In more ways than one, Dano.
Baby. I tell you, Chris, I don't know if you're the romantic type. I think most women really like romance. They like really specially thought out things. I would, you guys have to have a favorite romantic restaurant. I would put
Flanagan's.
A gift certificate to Flanagan's is what you're suggesting at the height of romance?
No, just do something that's really, like what I do for my wife. Well, nobody's going to tell her, but, I would pick a place like in the Keys. Like she loves what's that little island place? She loves these little, very romantic, kind of like out of a movie type of
Jimmy
thing.
Johnson, the Big Chill.
Oh, I love that place.
So what you're saying is try. What your advice, Ron, on gift giving is try. Try to be thoughtful. Try to understand your wife. Try to think of the things that might make her feel special, even if you yourself, Chris Cody, don't look at yourself in a mirror and say, I am sexy and romantic.
Also, not trying to break the bank.
Okay, well, I understand, but there's things that you can do without breaking the bank. Like I'm going to tell you something I just did the other day. About 4 weeks ago, and this is the best, Chris. When you do it without any reason at all, like I
the just because gift.
Just because are the best.
Ron,
just best kind of gift.
Ron,
yeah.
okay,
So right.
Look, we can do romance segment with Ron, but he's asking for the holidays. There is a specific reason that he's asking.
For the holidays, like I'd say, I would arrange for a hotel stay in a beautiful hotel overnight. Just give her I
actually like that idea. It is expensive, a little pricey, but that's actually not a bad idea.
And you can make it, and it's just for no reason. You say, listen, I want you to pick any weekend you want, and I want it to be our weekend, okay? But dinner, candles, the whole 9 yards. Right. Because you know what? Women don't really like as much material gifts as they like experiences. The experience to create memories. That's what they want.
I would tell Chris this as well, Ron. Tell me if you agree. Do not get anything off the list she provided for you. Not a single thing. The list is a
wrong. Absolutely wrong.
This is 20 years of marriage, I am telling you. The list is a trap, okay? It is a trap. She wants you to think for yourself.
On your own?
Thank you,
it's
Billy.
A trap.
Yep, it's a trap.
Absolutely,
trap
she wants you to think for yourself.
Game,
but you better get her something off of that list too, buddy.
No.
Nothing. She doesn't want anything on that list, Chris.
If anything, avoid everything on the list.
What's on the list? Do you have the list?
That's terrible advice from both Billy and Stugotz.
I'm still married.
That is terrible advice.
I'm still married.
It's terrible advice.
There's simply no way that can be your plan. Ignore the list. That seems like a disaster. Like that seems terrible advice.
The list, I am telling you right now, it's a test and it's a trick. Okay? She wants nothing on that list. She wants you to think for yourself.
She does want you to think for yourself.
It's not true.
She doesn't trust you to think for yourself.
I'm married 33 years, Stugotz. 33 years. And I can tell you it is very true. She doesn't expect everything on the list, but you better get her something on that list. Because if you think she's making the effort to make you a list for nothing.
Right.
The list is just a hotel and surprise me? I don't think so, Ron.
Well, this is the other thing. I'm not sure that Ron has given you great advice because you did say that you wanted to save some money on this.
Experiences, though, I'm with him on that. Get an experience. That's what I'm going to do.
Yes.
That's good advice.
Exactly. Do something together as experience.
Like maybe a VIP tour of the zoo. Like you never know. Like an experience somewhere. We'll see.
I can hook you up on that. You got the hookup for that.
Oh, can I get on that?
Ron, now you got
where we want it to end up. Thank you very much, Ron.
This is what
that was one of Dan's first dates, and look where he is now.
Not only first date, also my honeymoon. I just gave it to Ron. I'm like, Ron, hey, put together an experience for me. That's exactly how that went. Put a little pressure on it. Ron, you handle the romance for me. You handle what it is, and next thing you know, I'm in craters watching migrations of thousands of animals. I can't give.
Bottom line is, she said yes.
I mean, how hard a gift is that to give? The idea of migrating animals. That's what Ron. So if you want to just say, Special experience with Ron Magill. He just handled your holiday. And furthermore, Chris, there is no one who can provide the experience. Does she have a favorite animal? Ron can sit and get you close up to all.
She likes elephants.
Oh, wow. That's big. We got to hook up for that.
Look at that. Ron, can you explain to me? I was thinking of this the other day. Animals and how they show affection, and outside of fish kissing, is there a species of animal that specifically kisses as an affection?
Sure. I mean, a lot of the primates do. I guess that's very similar to us. But mouth tech, the touching of the mouths is very important to a lot of animals. Elephants with their trunks. I mean, their trunks are constantly exploring different things with their trunks. These are all, and cats, look at cats, look at dogs. I mean, they always come up and smell and lick, and they try to get,
they lick asses.
Sensitive. Excuse me?
Don't dogs lick asses?
Hell yeah.
They do.
Or sniff asses, either one.
No, they lick and sniff. Yeah.
Well, you're saying when my dog comes up to me and licks my cheek, that's a sign of affection?
He's just bonding with you. Yes, it is a sign of affection. It is.
Let's not assume.
But no, it is. It really is.
How about kissing, though? Animals specifically kissing.
Are you talking about like French kissing, like sticking their tongues down each other's throat, that type of thing?
I'm talking, no animals make out. That's only humans.
Yes and no. I mean, you'll see animals that do lick each other's tongues. They're licking at each other's tongues. They don't necessarily throw them down each other's throat and give them tonsillectomies, but they're exchanging that tongue fluid back and forth. You will see that a lot in a wide variety of animals. And, it's just one of those things. The senses of animals are much keener than ours are. We have doused ourselves with colognes and perfumes and shampoos and stuff. We have lost kind of like that need for those pheromones that animals pick up. And they pick that up by smelling, tasting, licking. Those are all things that help identify individuals to each other. And, that's the chemistry that animals have with each other. And we have that chemistry too. I mean, I'm sure you all have significant others. They like a certain type of cologne or some certain type of perfume, and they hate other ones that maybe a previous mate of yours might have loved. And they say, "Oh, that's gross." It's all chemistry.
What do you regard as the warmest form of affection shown between animals?
Wow. It's a form of touching. It's always a form of touching. But, you look at cats, and what do? Cats, they rub their heads up against each other. They'll do that to you too. That is a form of bonding. They rub their heads together. They don't lick or anything. They just rub their heads together. That is a type of affection. You see elephants always wrapping their trunks around each other. You see primates hugging each other. I'm literally hugging each other, falling asleep in each other's arms quite a bit. So, I mean, those are all forms of affection if we were going to equate it to what we see in human beings. But animals are affectionate with each other in many ways.
Ron, in the new episode of my podcast, we have on Miami Dolphins receiver Mac Hollins, and he talks about owning an 11.5-foot Sunglow boa. And I'm wondering, is that a smart thing to do? He also has, his wife is about to give birth, so there's going to be a baby in one room and an 11.5-foot boa in the next. Is that something you might recommend or not?
Before you answer that question, Ron Magill, if people want more information about that interview, where would they get it, Greg?
Well, it's the Greg Cody Show podcast, available wherever you get your podcast, Dan. Thank you for that.
What is it called, though?
It's called the Greg Cody Show with Greg Cody.
Ron, go ahead and answer his question about whether you should have a baby around a 12-foot snake.
Well, you shouldn't have a baby around a 12-foot snake. And that's not to say that you can't have the snake secure in a locked enclosure that makes it safe. But I always find that, there's always a chance snakes are escape artists. Plus now he's going to need to have a permit for that snake from Fish and Wildlife.
Really?
Yeah, I believe
Good job,
now
Dad.
that boas of that size, or at least anacondas and pythons, I know you need a permit on. And I think they're leaning towards boas. So he's going to need to find out about that.
What is a Sunglow boa compared to another type?
That is a form of an albino boa. It has kind of like that yellow coloration. These are all genetic mutations. People are now breeding these animals in captivity for their colors or lack of, so they create these kind of freaky looking things that you would never see in the wild.
Guillermo, put it on the poll, please. Do you consider snakes escape artists?
Ron, over 1,000 manatees are dying because of pollution in the waters and unable to eat, so they're starving. And the Fish and Wildlife Service apparently might be lifting a ban as a experiment to allow people to feed these manatees. Is that a good idea? Or is that something that you would want to do?
I don't know if I would lift a ban to say let anybody who wants to feed a manatee, but I think that coming up with carefully monitored, structured feeding programs for manatees, at least in the Indian Lagoon River area up by Tampa, might be a wise thing because those are the animals that are starving. Indian River, the seagrasses are dying. They're not starving because they cannot feed. They're starving because there's no food to eat. So they are coming up with a program now to augment that because, like you said, they've lost over 1,000 this year already, which is unbelievable. And it's going to continue because of all the pesticide fertilizer runoff that's created these algal blooms that have killed the seagrass in the lagoon. So those animals are starving. And yes, I agree that you should have a supplemental feeding program, but I would not go as far to say, oh, we're allowing the public now to go feed manatees because you can't regulate what they're giving those manatees.
Ron, I just read a story about how the endangered African penguin just suffered a catastrophic event where 60 breeding African penguins were all killed by a swarm of bees. They stung these penguins to death. Can a swarm of bees do damage on like a herd of elephant?
It's a good question. They're not going to kill an elephant, but elephants are naturally frightened of bees. They use bees now to protect property in Africa. They put beehives in certain fence lines, and the elephants won't cross those fence lines because of the bees, which is really a phenomenal natural control to help control these conflicts between elephants and people. So, bees, of course, you've heard about the Africanized bees. So an African penguin, those are the bees that came here and caused these aggressive strains of bees. So yes, in large numbers, they are capable of killing human beings. They've done so. So it's something that, to always be aware of.
My girl.
Listen, I want to point something out to you guys because I can't believe you haven't brought it up to me. I've been waiting every week for you to bring up the story. I can't believe you haven't found it. Did you hear about the Camel beauty contest in Saudi Arabia?
I was going to ask you the Botox.
There you go. I was waiting
scandal.
for this because this is such a great story. This is right up your guys' alley.
Well, go ahead. Tell us about it.
Well, listen, they had this camel beauty contest. It's like Miss Universe, but it's like Miss Camel Universe, where these camels go in and they have these strict rules. You cannot give your camels Botox or any kind of plastic surgery. And camels get disqualified every year because these princes spend a fortune doing Botox on the camels, doing certain eyelid lifts, doing face, plastic surgery on camels for beauty contests.
Cheating, right? Cheating?
Yeah, cheating. And they get disqualified. They get embarrassed in the entire, camel republic because they've done Botox on. Can you imagine what we have gone to when we're putting Botox on camels for a beauty contest?
That is about as absurd a story as you have told us, but
is there a big payday? I mean, people will do anything for a big payday.
Well, but he's saying
I knew you'd come up with that comment.
That camel is smoking.
You say that, but the Saudi princes are just having beauty contests because it's a way to spend money. Yes.
Well, they're winning a lot of money. I mean, there's a lot of money at stake for these contests, and it's this huge source of national pride. Camels are inherently one of the most gross. I mean, listen, I understand they've been beasts of burden for many years. I think camels are fantastic animals, but physiologically, they urinate all over themselves. They take their tail, they splash it between their legs when they're urinating, so they splash it in like a 10-foot radius of anything that's around them. Splash. Then they have a soft palate in their mouth. They make this huge burping sound. They kind of go, and that palate comes out of the side of the mouth. It looks like a huge tumor. It's horrific. And then they stink. They smell and they'll spit at you. They just have bad habits. Now, again, they're incredible animals. They're the only mammal, I think, that can live in the desert, lose 40% of its body weight and still survive without water. This is an incredible animal. But beauty contest for camels, and now you're doing Botox and plastic surgery, eye lifts and ear tucks and stuff. Come on, man.
You think the camel is among the ugliest animals, even though you're not framing it that way. You're saying among the least qualified animals to have a beauty contest.
Exactly. Unless you're having a beauty contest amongst other camels. That, it's camels and camels, but these are humans having a camel beauty contest. I just don't get it. And the money they spend and the fact that this judging is so strict, they test them for Botox or whatever, but disqualified. You Botoxed it. It doesn't count. You Botoxed your camel. what has the world come to, brother?
Ron, I have some follow-up questions on Mike's story. Why were the bees attacking the penguins? How did this collision of things happen?
Those penguins must have gotten to an area that was close to the hive. These bees are very, very protective of the hive, and it turns into a frenzy. Once one bee stings, they release pheromones that the other bees pick up, and they go, we got to sting. Everybody got to sting. Understand, when bees sting, guys, that's their last act. That's a fatal act for a bee. When a bee stings, it dies afterwards. So this is something that they're doing as a desperation move to save the hive. Bees are kind of the epitome of making the ultimate sacrifice for the better good of the hive. They will go in there and sacrifice their lives in a second to protect the hive. So the fact is, those penguins must have come in close proximity of the hive. These bees felt that the hive was threatened. Once the first one said, let's go, the rest of them jumped in, and that was it.
But why would penguins end up in a circumstance? I just don't think...
mistake. By total mistake. They were going up there, and they, why do people get stung by bees? You're walking through an area, and all of a sudden, oh, geez, I walked by a hornet. You didn't realize it. And then it's too late. The penguins didn't go in there with malice in their mind thinking, I want to go get honey. Penguins don't eat honey, okay? And they don't eat bees either. They eat fish. So they went in there, and it was totally by mistake. It was a tragic mistake that turned out to be fatal for 60 penguins.
Ron, you shrug your shoulders all the time. This is something that I've been meaning to ask you about, because I shouldn't say you shrug your shoulders because it's something that you care about, but I don't want to normalize the idea of manatees starving to death because of what we've done with pesticides and algae blooms. Is there anything to correct or reverse what it is that we've done there in terms of damage so that we can have that water be as safe as it should be?
Well, they're doing it now. I mean, I know people like Audubon and other environmental groups are working with Tallahassee to pass some laws. They're negotiating with Big Sugar and a lot of these farmers up there, and they're working in the right direction, understanding what has just happened. And I think people are starting to see that there are consequences for this type of stuff. And I think they're making stricter rules and regulations as to the uses of those pesticides, when you can use them so the runoff does not occur at certain times of year that creates these blooms. So they are working in that direction, but it's not something that's going to be solved overnight.
But how dangerous is it going to end up being for manatees? Because we're also losing them here, right? It's 5 times the rate. Over the last 5 years, we've killed more manatees, and it's been alarming than we have in the previous, however much time before that, right? Like, the numbers are a bit startling, how many manatees are dying.
It's been startling in the last couple of years, especially because manatees, actually their population started to increase quite a bit to the point where they took them off the endangered species list. And then there was a big push to actually take them off of the protected threatened species list, which the environmentalists say, you can't do that. Listen, the population's again going down in the wrong direction. So they were able to kind of stop that from happening. And if this continues in this rate, they're going to become an endangered species again. The problem is, Dan, we've got to have compromise. We've got to work because, you've got the boating industry saying, listen, we want to be able to run our boats here, but, okay, if you're going to run your boats there, you got to run them slow. You can't be running them through there like it's the Indy 500. Because in addition to the starvation, the rest of these killings are occurring basically from boat strikes, things like that. So we've got to change a culture. We've got to change a behavior. But I will say the fact that we're talking about it on a show like this, is the word is getting out. People are becoming aware, especially kids. And, there's an old saying that says, you can't teach an old dog new tricks, but I know that there's nothing more important to me than my kids. When it becomes important to them, it becomes important to me. And I think kids now, the young generation is making a big push, environmental change. And I'm optimistic that things are going to get better before they get worse for manatees. I think that, climate change combined with all of this runoff is creating a lot of problems, but I think it's headed in a better direction. I really do.
Ron, good talking to you. Thank you. We'll talk to you again next week, sir.
All right, Dan. Take care, buddy.